Hello, everyone, and we are back to finally talk about Adrian Newey becoming team principal at Aston Martin. And before I go full glaze on Adrian Newey, I thought it would be good to have a little bit of balance. So, live from Japan, here is Ammar. Konnichiwa, Ammar-san.
Konnichiwa. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. How's
I heard that everything was becoming too smart on our show, and I take offense to that. Like this is, where are the wives, man? Get the wives back in there. I don't see Formula One drivers looking at Excel sheets and super times and
It's
just
true.
driving. They actually kind of put their bum in the seat and kind of go on and about. So I'm back. I have to be back.
This is true. I do see F1 drivers looking at telemetry screens just before they drive out of the garage, though. So I'm not sure it's quite as vibey as you're trying to make out. But
Ferrari guys don't.
it's because they haven't worked out how to switch the computer on yet. But we're going to talk about some Adrian Newey-ness.
Oh,
And I've got some questions for you. But before I give you those questions, I'm going to give you some quotes. So this was announced. Adrian Newey becoming team principal was announced at Silverstone, at the Silverstone base by Lawrence Stroll. There's some interesting quotes that came out of the actual announcement. So just for the avoidance of doubt, Adrian Newey is going to be managing technical partner. He's going to retain that role, but he is also going to take over trackside operations as the team principal from 2026. So in doing that, he is moving aside Andy Cowell, who is currently in that role. So Andy Cowell had this to say. He said, and I quote, he's very proud and happy that he set the foundations for Adrian and the wider organization. All right. But he's now going off to help to optimize the technical partnership between the team, Honda, Aramco, that's their title sponsor, and Valvoline, who's their fuel partner, and to ensure the seamless integration of the team's new power unit, fuel, and chassis. Sounds good, right? Andy Cowell, remember that name. Lawrence Stroll, Big Loro, said that Andy's been great. He has fostered a culture that puts the race car back at the heart of what we do. Clearly, just tracing other people's cars was actually what was at the heart of what they do before Andy Cowell turned up. In terms of Adrian Newey becoming team principal, he said it will enable him to make full use of his creative and technical expertise. I think that is the key line of the entire thing. I was listening also to the Beyond the Grid podcast, and Sebastian Vettel was on it chatting to Tom Clarkson. And Tom Clarkson asked him about Adrian Newey. And I think it's quite interesting to hear what he had to say because it echoes what a lot of other people have said about Adrian Newey. Adrian needs to be in the right environment. He does have a quality that not many people have. He is obsessed with racing. He loves racing. He really is like a child when it comes to motor racing, which to me sounds a lot like the famous Ron Dennis quote, Adrian is one of the most competitive people I have ever met, coming from a man that worked alongside Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. So Ammar, to you, I ask, why? Why has Adrian Newey, the most competitive person Ron Dennis has ever met, or at least one of, why is he doing this?
I think the why he's doing this is pretty simple, right? He's part owner at Aston Martin, so he is about as invested in their success as anyone has. But just this decision to me feels very odd. This asking Adrian Newey to become the team principal is like asking, a Picasso to also do accounting. I don't quite get I don't quite get what's going on here. And this is no knock on Newey. You're right. He's been in the sport forever. He has been race engineer and car designer for many champions along the way, right? But he's also been in the right environment, to Sebastian Vettel's point, and the right environment needs the right leader, leadership. So this is a bit of a head scratcher for me, because I know everyone's kind of gung ho about Adrian Newey, the car designer, but it's a completely different ballgame to be a team principal where you're managing so many different things. One of which will be, and my question to him would be, are you going to fire Lance Stroll or not? Like, I mean, that's what you're going to have to do if you really are serious about success. And I know that's not happening. So I do not understand that this decision on the heels of Christian Horner being available. And so, Shez, I'm going to turn around to you actually and ask you this question, because I've been disconnected from F1 reality for the most part. Do you still believe the door is shut on Christian Horner joining Aston Martin? I mean, he could be in a Zach Brown slash sort of CEO type of role too, right? And they could kind of bring the gang back together, right? It could happen still, no?
Yeah, I mean, this is the exact conversation that we had yesterday, and um, I think I read in one of our comments that actually maybe this is just a temporary move until Christian Horner's gardening leave finishes and he's able to come and join in March. But look, from what I understand, this is just me reading what Stuart Codling wrote in Autosport this morning, that actually Christian Horner's demands and what he actually brought to the table didn't add very much to the structure. Now you can take from that what you want. Would it have been a good move for him to be there in the team principal role or as the CEO? I think that's a separate question. Does it leave the door open for him? Yeah, potentially, because as you say, Adrian Newey is a technical guy, he's an engineer, and he has excelled on the technical side of the sport. Does that leave space for somebody with the skills that Christian Horner has to come in and fill in a vacuum that's been left a little bit? Yeah, maybe. But I counter that with the fact that actually, if you look across the grid now, um, there's now a plethora of teams that have an engineering person as a team principal. In fact, Aston Martin themselves are a team that even before this move have had a team principal that was an engineer. Andy Cowell is one of the most talented engineers on the grid. So perhaps actually that need for a team principal that does all the commercial side of things isn't needed quite as much, especially when you've got Lawrence Stroll, who kind of heads up all the commercial side of things at Aston Martin anyway. So if you're looking at a sort of Zach Brown, Andrea Stella kind of setup, then Aston have kind of already got that made with Big Loro as the CEO and Newey as the team principal. But I guess the question you're asking, reading between the lines, is how is Adrian Newey going to deal with the media facing side of things, and is he going to go off and be doing corporate events and sponsorship stuff? Is that going to take him away from the day-to-day running of the stuff that he's good at? And I think that's a valid question. I do want to come back to something that you said, because you said you opened your answer with asking Adrian Newey to do this is like asking Picasso to be an accountant, which I found amusing. But do you think Adrian Newey was asked to do this, or do you think it's his idea?
That's a difficult one to answer, right? Because again, he's a part owner, right? So in some sense, he's asked Adrian Newey, the employee, to do it. My guess is they looked around the grid. Aston did, or Lawrence Stroll did, to be more precise, and probably didn't find a suitable replacement. I think your answer about Christian Horner makes a lot of sense, because clearly there was a disconnect in there big enough for that for him to not be there, because he would have made sense, particularly from what the job description entails and his success at Red Bull. But I could have also made an argument that him and Lawrence Stroll would be butting heads, because these are two alpha males that kind of want things to be done a certain way. They're both drive to survive personalities in their own regard, right? So you could see why this wouldn't work, and that's also kind of the reason why this wouldn't work for Christian Horner at Ferrari too. Really, I mean This is really a matter of interpersonal relationships and interpersonal dynamics, right? Which is, I guess, 90% of where a lot of friction or great work happens, despite all of the technical details that go into making a successful Formula One team. So, um, yeah, this is a bit of a head scratcher to me because, on the one hand, Adrian Newey has been the genius that we've all known him to be. I mean, part of why Red Bull is even successful to this day, despite Newey have left them about a year ago now, is the fact that he's designed a car that could continue to be developed, and it's a matter of time before his proteges kind of figured stuff out. I mean, look at the success that McLaren has had. He's had something to do with building that tree, so to speak. But the idea that he would come in and run an F1 team, I think is pretty amazing. And so and that too, we're having a rule change next year, and you're gonna have to do a lot of stuff there. Now, Shez, I'll just push back on one thing though. Adrian Newey probably doesn't need to be front facing in many regards, right? Because Lawrence Stroll will do enough of a job in terms of raising money. I don't even know if they need to raise money. I mean, I don't. Yeah, it's not an Ayo Komatsu kind of role, right? Where it's So I don't know about that, but again, is he going to have the ability to fire Lance Stroll or not? Because that's the big question. It's not Fernando. Fernando's going to probably retire next year, but the reality is, what is he going to do with the drivers? Like, what is he, or is he just going to praise him like Fernando easily does, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a point at which he is going to have to take an interest in the drivers, but he's a driver's kind of technical head anyway. Like, he was always angry at Williams that he wasn't allowed to make decisions, and maybe him having some actual skin in the game gives him a bit of leverage to kind of make those decisions. Perhaps he'll be able to persuade Lance that it's his idea that he no longer continues at the Formula One team. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, given that he now has the one thing that he's not had at any other team that he's worked at, an actual stake in it, I think he has a bit more power. And to come back, because I think this is linked, to come back to what you said about two big personalities butting heads. Actually, they've complemented themselves quite well so far, Big Loro and Adrian Newey. Lawrence Stroll clearly knows that he's not a technical guy. Like he ran Tommy Hilfiger. That's what he does. He drums up cash. He makes money, sells stuff, and he obviously sold the idea of Aston Martin to Adrian Newey. And part of that sell was that I'm going to give you control of a lot of stuff. We're going to get behind you, and that's not just a sell to Adrian Newey. That's because I think he understands that, like, him interfering with that side of things isn't going to do it. If he's going to back someone, he's going to back them all the way, and that person is Adrian Newey. I understand from like post race debriefs and stuff that Lawrence Stroll also gets pretty angry at results and like is fond of a blame culture. So perhaps Adrian
Really?
Newey also won't be completely shielded from the chopping block if things go south. But at the moment, Stroll has kind of seen Newey as the magic bullet and is happy to just let him do everything. And for Adrian to turn around and say, look, things aren't going so well with Andy Cowell. Things would go better if I was the one in charge. And that's why I think this is less somebody else's idea and more Newey wanting ultimate control of everything around him. Actually, quite a lot in the way that Christian Horner had it at Red Bull. Do I think that that's a dumb idea, though? Right? Why are you pointing at yourself?
Well, I was gonna say, I
Go on.
mean, what happens when the 2026 car isn't what we think it's gonna be, right? Is he just gonna say, "Oh, I didn't feel like winning," right? Like he's done in the past, like that. Is that what it's gonna be, right? I mean, again, I think this is a very risky play for Aston Martin because they have been building up, I would say, arguably more so than any other team towards 2026. I mean, they have literally told us for the last 3 years that that's all they're really doing. So I don't know how you judge Andy Cowell with sort of having poor results because you've never really said you're going to be in the mix for anything really. what was it, 2022, where they had a couple of podiums, right? And oh no, 23, I should say.
He wasn't there though. In
He
23, he
wasn't
wasn't
there,
there. He wasn't a TP at that
but
point. Mike Crack
no,
was.
no, I know you're right, and that's it. I love my crack. Um,
Everyone
but
does.
the point is they were never really in it to win anything. So I don't understand this stuff. And so there's a part of me that feels like that Nui is now, high on power, where he is instigating change, where he's like, okay, I'm gonna borrow a page from the Christian Horner playbook and like, okay, this is what I'm gonna. So yeah, look, they could be great chess, but I mean, he's going to have to give something up too, part of which will revolve around designing the car too, right? I mean, he was free to do whatever he wanted with sort of car design, aerodynamics, all of the above, and you can't just simply do that too. So
Okay,
I
so
don't I
I'm
don't see how this can be a
try and
success.
answer that question from Adrian Newey's point of view, because I think this whole topic has two parts to it. It has the Adrian Newey part to it, and it has the team part to it. From an
Mhm.
Adrian Newey point of view, let's chart his timeline through Formula One. Right, the first team that he joined where he started to actually win stuff was at Williams, and at Williams he was made chief designer. Right? Not technical director, chief designer. Technical director at the time was Patrick Head. And even at that point, Adrian Newey lobbied to have shares in the team, but Frank and Patrick said no. But they did give him some concessions. They said, look, you can have final say, or at least some say, when it comes to driver choices, engineering choices, etc. But when it came to it, they didn't do that. And because he had no skin in the game, he said no. But remember, he was only chief designer at that point, and he left essentially in protest to the fact that Damon Hill was sacked at the end of 1996. So then he goes to McLaren, and at McLaren he gets that coveted technical director role, right? But even in that technical director role, he's still an employee. He's shoved into this matrix management thing where he still doesn't get to have the say he wants. In fact, he says after 2003, when they bring out the MP418, or they try to, but it's too flawed to race. He says, "Look, we should spend some cash on changing the chassis," and he gets voted down by the rest of the technical group. And you can look at that how you will, but I'm trying to look at this directly from Adrian Newey's point of view as to why this decision yesterday was made. And he will turn around and say, look, I didn't have the autonomy that I needed to make the decisions that I thought were necessary to make our car go forwards. So he leaves McLaren and he turns up at Red Bull. And at Red Bull, he is made technical director again, but this time they say free reign. You, from the technical point of view, can go ahead and do whatever you want, right? You can you brainstorm and spitball and blue sky thinking and come out with the best technical solutions you can. And he does, right? At Red Bull from 2009 to 2013, and then again in 2022 onwards, he's the benchmark designer in Formula One. But even at Red Bull, he'll turn around and say, well, on the race side, our engines kept blowing up. We had technical failures that we shouldn't have had. We had strategies that went wrong. We had a butting of heads of our two drivers. We didn't manage them well. And actually, if I'd been in control of that, then I would have done things differently. And perhaps this is the final culmination of all of that. At the age of 66, Adrian Newey, with his entire the library of experience that he has, greater than anybody else, I think, in the sport when it comes to the technical and even the racing side of things. Remember, he was Damon Hill's race engineer in 1996, right? He did design the car, but he also married that up with being his race engineer. He will turn around and say, look, I'm now managing technical partner or whatever. I am a part shareholder, stakeholder in this team. I've got all this experience. I want to now put all of it together as one giant conglomeration and have everything under my remit. And perhaps that could work. Maybe he does bring certain innovations to the race team, to pit stops, to strategy that we haven't seen in Formula One before. So the innovation that he's brought to the technical department, could he also bring that to race operations? And perhaps that is what he is seeing. That's why he has taken that role. What do you think?
So, I mean, I think that your explanation is fair, Shez, but we know that F1 is a brutal sport. So, I guess my question to you is, how many races before we start blaming this on Adrian Newey, right? Because he has been with the team for now, what, 6 months or so, give or take, right? He's been essentially working on this 2026 car for, I mean, he's probably done with it, right, at this point, and probably thinking about 27 and 28 and 29 at this point, right? But the reality is, with next year's rule set, and we know that Mercedes have the best power unit, at least if you're going to believe rumors, there's a good chance that Aston Martin are not even in the top three. Just because there are a couple of Mercedes, there's Mercedes, there's McLaren, there's arguably Williams that could be in the mix with it. Then there's Alpine too, right? And it's not a given that Aston Martin have proven to be successful on a race in and race out basis. So my question to you is, in a 24th race season, which is next year as well, how many races before we start talking about Christian Horner coming there? And then what does that aftermath look like? Does Newey step back if he's not successful? What does that look like? Because this is, this is pretty explosive if it doesn't work. Like it's going to look like a massive failure.
Yeah, as Spider-Man didn't quite say, with great power comes great
Oh,
accountability.
come
Um, uh, and yeah, you're absolutely right. That could definitely happen, and we could we could be looking at this in 5 or 6 races time. But again, as I always argue, like you can't measure success in Formula One in the space of 3 or 4 races. If he's made a success of the technical side of things, actually, he's probably going to get a bit of leeway when it comes to the racing operation side of things. And like I said, he's not somebody that's coming to it with zero experience of it. I agree, he's never been a team principal, but he has been a race engineer. That's where he cut his teeth in the first place. He has had a hand in strategy, especially when it comes to his own individual driver. So it's not as if he can't do those things. And perhaps what he has seen, the mistakes that he has seen, both from this team and from other teams that he has worked at, he might go, well, I've had these ideas percolating in my head for ages. I want to test them out. And you're right, they may not work at all, and they may that we may see Adrian Newey with egg on his face. But I find that difficult to believe because I haven't
I
seen
don't.
that from
Yeah,
him
but I
before.
don't think I don't think, and I'm not rooting for his failure or anything like that, but I'm actually rooting for his success because I think I might have a personal interest in what the possible driver market might look like in 27 if rumors are to be believed. But the reality is, this is not about questioning Adrian Newey's experience or his ability to bring so much to the sport, and he already has, right? He's probably, if there's a Hall of Fame for non-drivers. He's probably well, he's definitely in the Mount Rushmore of that, right? In terms of his impact on the sport, we can have that debate in the off
Yeah,
season. I just
yeah.
think about
I
that,
mean,
but
let me set my
yeah,
stall out here now. If
yeah,
there's a
yeah, yeah,
Mount
yeah,
Rushmore, he's on the Everest sitting behind
yeah,
it.
yeah. I know, again with that, like you just upgraded it. Like we can have that debate. Uh, but again, being team principal, Chess, everything you're saying is 100% accurate. It's one thing to observe and bring those observations to the team that you're working with. It's another thing to be the guy making decisions while also reacting to everything that's going out there. So again, this is not to suggest that he cannot do it, but keep in mind, being a team principal is not walking around observing cars and then making sketches on napkins and kind of doing that. So it's just going to be an interesting challenge, and I for one am rooting for him to be successful because I'd like to see Aston Martin be competitive, and then I'd like to see what that means for the driver market. But again, the big question, and I keep coming back to it, it sounds like a silly thing to talk about, right? But a team principal is going to have to make some decisions about the drivers that he's putting in there, and the ones that he has. So if he is a part owner, if he has been able to talk himself into this role, I have to believe that he's going to have some leeway in being able to go to Lawrence Stroll and say, "Hey, man, your son's been racing for like damn near a decade now, and he isn't that good. If there was any other driver, by now we would have canned it. Is he going to be able to make changes like that? Because to me, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's not oh let's swap drivers, let's swap positions between Alonso and Stroll because Alonso's leading the championship or not. The question is what happens I call it the second seat. You can call it the first seat, right? But what happens in Lance Stroll will tell you a lot about what this arrangement looks like because if he doesn't have leeway on that, then I don't know that he has the kind of leeway that we all believe he does.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, he isn't the actual team owner, and I agree with that. Um, there's a couple of other bits to this, right? Because this hasn't happened in isolation, and perhaps this team structure, at least as it looks at the moment, makes a bit more sense. In that, Andy Cowell, he might be a little bit annoyed that he has been shifted aside, but actually, is he now being put in the position that he was actually made for? This is where he was successful when he was at Mercedes. Trying to marry up the challenge of a brand new power unit and mating that to a chassis, and perhaps it would be the best chassis it possibly could be because he's got Adrian Newey designing it. Maybe that structure works really well. Why is that not coming to our into
It
our
could,
thinking? Why was Andy Cowell not in
yeah.
the
Well, I
not in the
mean,
wrong
just
position?
I mean, we have to acknowledge, and we've been speaking for what, like 20 minutes now. We have to acknowledge how you feel about Adrian Newey, which you just kind of dropped a few seconds ago. I mean, you are obsessed with Adrian Newey to the core, and I don't blame you for it. But again, you cannot look at this objectively and say that these are
That's
all
not
things
fair.
that will work out
That's not
because
fair. I'm not saying
this
they
is
are.
not.
I'm not saying they are going to work out.
But
What I was saying was, with the
this,
structure that they had, could you not also
yeah,
argue that Andy Cowell
no,
was
you
in the
couldn't.
wrong position?
No, you
That
couldn't
him
because they've
doing,
changed the structure every 2 years. Every 2 years, there's a new
yeah,
principal.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah. But
Aston Martin are essentially Ferrari without
yeah, okay,
any other, you know, in some
and
ways.
I agree with
So
you on that. I agree with you on that. But if you're questioning Adrian Newey taking on too much, being technical director and team principal, was it also not a bit too much for Andy Cowell to be team principal and being liaison with Honda? Isn't that asking for too much?
it could be, but again, this is again a series of bad decisions. And then this could potentially be the next one in a series of decisions. I mean, you just talked about them being somewhat successful under Mike Crack. How long was he there? A couple of years. I mean, every team principal it seems that Aston Martin is basically a cup of coffee. Like that's what this is right now at this point. So I have no reason to believe that Adrian Newey will stick around long enough in this role, whether through his own
Well,
accord or well being, so I can't take this seriously at the moment in that regard. The only reason we're talking about this, Shez, is because it's Adrian Newey. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this. Or maybe we'd be talking about this if Christian Horner. And by the way, I'll say this too. We are glossing over the fact that Christian Horner is not here, but I think it says something about Aston Martin too. I mean, there's clearly, I mean, look, let's put the personal stuff aside, right, with Christian Horner, but his body of work at Red Bull has been amazing. And for a team like Aston Martin, that is a great fit on some level. And I know you and Kunal talked about this in the previous episode too, but this is also reflective of where Aston Martin is at, which is why Christian Horner is not there. It couldn't have been about the money, Shez. It probably was about the ownership too, to a certain extent. But whatever it is, why wouldn't you have a guy like him? Because for all of the complaining that we might be doing of Christian Horner in the way that he's conducted himself, he has been nothing but an amazing asset to the team that he's been at Red Bull. I mean, just earlier this year, we were seeing him bring these what is it telemetry shots like you do, right? And these still photos at a press conference. Like that's the kind of stuff. Do you see Adrian Newey doing any of that? Like with Alonso, like kind of being there? Like, and by the way, is Alonso now done with British bias since his
So,
team principal is
Ammar,
British?
let me just push back against that slightly, because what you're trying to say is that Christian Horner was some kind of like amazing team principal that did everything on his
Much
own.
better than Adrian Newey as a team principal.
But you don't
No,
know
you
that
would say that.
because Adrian Newey hasn't
Well,
been a team
results.
principal.
You just okay,
But
but
Adrian
the
Newey
other
hasn't been a
guy
team
has
principal, so you don't know. He hasn't
but
even
the other
he hasn't
guy
even had
has
a day in the role.
But you don't even need that.
And
Even if he's
my
had
argument
a year in
against
a
that would
row.
be that the reason. So when did Christian Horner start winning races with Red Bull? Can you remember the first year he won a race with Red Bull?
Was it? No.
2009. 2009. And what did that coincide with?
With Adrian Newey being there.
But no, it coincided with a technical rule change, right? Which is where Adrian Newey really makes his money.
Shez, you can't do that stuff where it's only Adrian Newey that's making
I'm not saying that. But if you're looking at pattern recognition, I'm not saying that Christian Horner was a bad team principal, but to try and say that, you know, he was really amazing because he turned up with telemetry shots and defended his drivers, and that's what he was doing. He was defending his drivers, not his team, in that situation. Actually, what his greatest achievement, I would argue, Christian Horner that is allowing Adrian Newey the space to do his work, right? But but the work was done by Adrian Newey, and as soon as Adrian Newey is not there, the team take a dive. And as soon as Christian Horner is out of the picture, suddenly everyone's is happy and roses. And if you're talking about drivers, which I know is the most important thing to you, and to most people listening, right? What do you think would be the biggest driver asset that could come to Aston Martin? And don't say Charles Leclerc. It's not.
Like, which would be the best driver to come to Aston Martin? Max Verstappen.
Correct.
Right? That's
and what was the reason? Oh. Right, so that's not going to look good, is it? Like if Christian Horner is back at Aston Martin, suddenly can you imagine Jos Verstappen and Max and his entire entourage going, yeah, let's go there.
Yes, they will. I'll tell you why. If this is the makings of another championship winning car, then that's where they'll go. For all the bluster that Jos Verstappen gives, it's all about winning, man. Like, I mean, I don't like all these people kind of jumping up on their high horses and talking about, oh my God, Christian Horner is bad for the team and all. No, he wasn't. Max won 4 championships, right? It's only when they started to struggle.
Adrian Newey designed car.
No, okay. So somebody's got to design a car too. Like, I mean, you know, who was designing cars at Mercedes when they were rattling off 8 world championships as a team and 6 with
James Allison.
Yes. So correct. So Adrian Newey is not the only guy that has been racing.
Yeah.
Okay, but to your point, Shez, there's not just one guy who can design race-winning cars. This is not Adrian Newey does not own the exclusive
But
domain.
you could turn that argument on its head and say that for the first 3 years of the turbo hybrid era, the most important part of the package was the power unit, and Mercedes had the best leader when it came to power units at that time. Don't try and start a different argument. So yes, who you have in particular technical positions is important, and yes, I'm not going to take away from the fact that Christian Horner did create the environment in which that could happen, but there were also fairly big, you could argue, mismanagements when it came to drivers, mismanagements when it came to strategy and race operations, which have to also fall on Christian Horner's head. There was an entire 8-year gap where they couldn't get a power unit because he kept peeing off Renault. So it's not as if Christian Horner was unbelievably excellent and perfect as a team principal in every scenario.
I didn't say that, Chad. I just simply asked you if you're putting the resumes of team principals and I'm seeing Christian Horner on one end and Adrian Newey on the other, who am I picking?
Well, if it's my own team and I've got skin in the game, I'm going to pick myself, and that's what Adrian Newey has done.
Yeah. So this is my point. So this is a little bit of nepotism in its own different ways of working itself.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Which is fine. Look, this could be really good.
Yeah.
This could be really good. I mean, and to your point, Adrian Newey has not proved that he can create the space to let other people be successful. Now, to your point, he's had interactions and experience to know how it can be done, but it has not been done yet. And so my point to you is, if you're looking for a team principal, a head guy to sort of run everything, and you have Adrian Newey, an amazing designer in the works, then I would pretty much go for the team principal. And you're right in talking about Max. I mean, I don't want to take this too far, but I don't believe that Max is leaving Red Bull because he's already got what he wants over there. I mean, you just talked about driver mismanagement at Red Bull. I think that was by design to keep Max happy. I mean, that's why they've churned through driver after
I don't know,
driver
but
after driver.
I'm not talking
And we don't
about.
hold that against him, do we?
But that's only one side of it. But I'm talking about even further back than that. Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel were also mismanaged at points in that relationship.
Even Toto Wolff hasn't won anything in 5 years, right? So I mean, this is. I mean, all of these things are. You're not going to win every time. I mean, good God, what we wouldn't give up to have this at Ferrari. I mean, for crying out loud. And I'm not dunking on Vasseur by any chance. It's the arrangement of it. So Aston Martin to me feel a little bit like Ferrari minus the aura of it, like right now. And again, I'm skeptical of Adrian Newey being team principal and being successful. I'm not cynical, right? I'm just being skeptical in part because of the way that Aston Martin also operate, right? They are the exact opposite of Ferrari in a cultural sense, but they're the exact same in the ruthlessness of it, right? I mean, I, is Lawrence Stroll going to tell his drivers to shut up and drive? I mean that's essentially kind of what happens. Right? I mean, it is happening right now. I mean, Lance doesn't say anything. I mean, he's usually just say, "What do we need to improve?" He's like everywhere. Like that's So that is essentially happening right now. I mean, look at Fernando Alonso. He will be critical about Lewis Hamilton, the FIA, everyone, but Lance Stroll, oh, amazing, great potential. Like
yes, and Fernando was also bending the knee literally to Adrian Newey.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, but I mean, yeah. So.
Cool, Ammar. Thanks, man. So, in the face of my abject Adrian Newey glazing, I'm glad that you were here to rein me in. But as usual, what do you guys think? Please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. We'll read every single one. We'll reply to as many as we possibly can. And when Ammar's back from Japan, he'll do some more stuff with me almost in person. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Can't wait to see how Newey's going to manage all the coffee stuff at Aston Martin too now, in addition to designing cars.
We'll see you guys in the next one.